Hello and welcome to Just One More Podcast. Sorry, Jody, I just had to do it. I've always wanted to, and I'll never do it again. So I apologize, but hopefully you're okay with it. This is a Time to Calibrate podcast where we talk about our silly decisions and hopefully learn from them so that you don't have to. I'm joined with my co-host extraordinaire, Roby and Bob. And how have you guys been?
Great, man. Thanks for asking.
Doing pretty good over here too.
So let's get the wrist checks out of the way. What are you guys wearing on your wrist today?
Well, I'd like to say that I'm wearing something different from last time, but the honeymoon is quite strong for me and the S&P 2531. I do have it on wrist today, but I will say I did switch up one thing, and this is a shout out to Forstner. They sent me their President's bracelet, the 1450, and you know, I actually do really like the original bracelet on the S&P, but variety is the spice of life, and the taper on this thing is just beautiful. I can't get over it. I'm looking down at my wrist all the time. But anyway, that's what I got on. So huge shout out to Forstner. They've done a beautiful job with this bracelet.
Yeah, they really do. Jason Heaton has one on his Seamaster as well, and it looks fantastic. And, you know, it's great to change it up. I'm a big bracelet guy, so I wholly endorse that. How about you, Bob?
For me, also a fan of the brand, by the way. I have a couple other bracelets. I wear the clip quite a bit. It's just so lightweight and so much breathability, especially in the summertime. But today I am wearing the good old G-Shock Square. I've had a bit of a situation in the house this week. My dog got sprayed by a skunk. So we've been kind of having to bathe him several times a day in the last few days. So need something good and waterproof on wrist.
Yeah, I've been there, done that.
Yeah.
My cat has gotten sprayed twice, and we have a baking soda formula that's worked pretty well for him. But whenever he gets wet or it's a little too damp, like humid like today, you still smell it on him a little bit. And it's been a year.
You know what? I have a pro tip for everybody if anybody goes through this. My neighbor told me to try clumping kitty litter and rub it into the fur, and it worked amazingly. Like, it got rid of most of the smell, actually, almost immediately.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Well, we're going to have to change the name of the podcast, and we're going to have this for household tips as well.
Yeah, exactly. Has your pet got skunked? Well, we've got the solution for you. And wear a G-Shock.
Yeah.
So, Mark, It's just up to you. What do you got on wrist?
Yeah, I've got my Hamilton on, unlike last week, and you know, it's warm, it's sticky, it's disgusting out here. It's 40 degrees with the humidity Celsius. Again, this is Canada, and this thing is nice and light and comfortable, even on bracelet. And you know, I barely know it's there. I'm really enjoying it. So, still got that on. Very happy with it.
Yeah, that's a fantastic piece. I had it in here for review for, I think an extended period of time, almost a month, and I wore it quite frequently. Beautiful watch.
Yeah, they really launched that thing with all the YouTubers and bloggers, and it's been all over the place. And they just had an event in Arizona, I believe. Some of the people from Warner Wound went down and they did four-wheelers, and then they did air balloon rides and hiking, and they did all kinds of activities with them, and they got to keep the watches. So yeah, they're getting a lot of publicity out of it, and they're really trying to focus on that model. And I mean, rightfully so. The price is right, and it's such a great watch.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. For this episode, guys, I've got 3 questions for you, and we also, believe it or not, everybody, we have a listener email, and in that email there's a question, so we'll get to that as well. And to put the icing on our podcast cake, Roby had a great interview with someone really special, so we'll put that at the tail end of the episode, so you'll have to listen all the way to the end, and I'll let Roby do that introduction. So if you guys are ready, here we go. So question numero uno. What do your spouses, kids, and family think of your hobby and all the time you spend in it?
You want to go ahead, Roby?
Sure. You know what? My mother has always been my biggest fan. It doesn't really even matter what I got up to. It could be something crazy and, make me look like a lunatic, but she would always tell me that's fantastic. So, from my mother, it's always been nothing but pure support. My in-laws, I think, found it pretty curious in the beginning, but, they've also kind of fallen in line. Now, my friends, on the other hand, they used to tease me, a little bit relentlessly, actually, about it. And then one day I started flying off to Miami and New York and Geneva. And, and now I think they're just genuinely interested and they've been incredibly supportive, to be honest. It is a strange hobby when you think about it. And, when we talk about things like value propositions, like your Hamilton, Mark, we're talking about watches that are still in the ballpark of $1,000. And the average person, they look at that and they think, what are you talking about, value proposition, So it's a world that is very interesting, very kind of insular. And the majority of people, I don't think they really get it. But for sure, for me, on the whole, things have been great and supportive and lots of curiosity.
How about you, Bob?
For me, my wife is 100% supportive. I have definitely gotten the side eye a couple of times when watches have come into the house, some purchases, but like we all maybe have, but she's 100% supportive. I have the travel side of things with the YouTube, and she's obviously into that, even helps me with the filming side. My same as Roby, my dad is my number one fan, and it's a kind of a way for us to stay connected. He lives out on the East Coast in New Brunswick, and my mother as well. So it's kind of a way for him to be able to see me and see what I'm up to through the whole YouTube thing. So that's fun. I have made a few converts to the watch insanity in the family too. A nephew of mine, Matthew. A couple of other nephews, actually, twin nephews as well. Ollie and Camden are now into watches. And everybody thinks it's pretty cool for the most part in the fam.
Yeah, you speak of converts. I also have a couple of converts in my close following. One being a former boss of mine who's definitely been bitten by the bug. But probably the biggest convert has been my wife. In fact, not only has she kind of jumped on the horology ship, but she's also become our videographer for the Calibrated Wrist, and she's done some fantastic work. The last two videos we put up were all done by her. So, when you talk about converts, that's for me, those are my number two.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, very cool. I might as well answer the question as well. My wife is not that interested in watches or interested at all. She thinks I'm completely bonkers. Though she's supportive, and the fact that I've been able to eke out a meager income at it has helped a lot. So that's been great. My kids love it. They think that it's really cool that their dad has more Instagram followers than they do. And as far as my coworkers, I've managed to infect quite a few of them. And I say infect because one of them in particular has been bit pretty bad. And he wanted to start off, at not the top, but he wanted to start off with an Omega Seamaster professional. He got himself just recently. His father was in Kuwait last summer and wound up getting a great deal on a Tudor chronograph, Black Bay. And then, so he's starting right off at at a decent jump in point, and he bought himself an Oris limited edition. And so he's really bid really, really good. As far as work's concerned as well, my coworkers got used to seeing boxes arrive at the office on a regular basis. Every time the mailman showed up with a box, everybody's like curious as to what did I get in the mail, and the unboxing process. Everyone wants to see it and touch it and hold it, and so it's been fun. But yeah, it appears we're bit pretty bad, and there's no cure except for podcasting, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Question number 2. How did you guys come up with your handles, your Instagram names for Time to Go and Caliber 321? How did you guys come up with that?
Well, I kind of wanted mine to be a bit like a secret handshake, something that was recognizable to enthusiasts, but also like a little representative of who I am. I know that I tried a few other things before I settled on Caliber 321. I don't even remember what they were right now, but I was honestly surprised that handle hadn't yet been taken. I kind of like the pioneering spirit that it encapsulates, kind of like, a watch that was designed for the track, but eventually lands on the moon. And so, I like adventure, everyday adventure. I like hiking and kayaking and those kinds of things. And although I'll never land on the moon, I just kind of thought that it was representative of who I am. And like I say, people who are into this hobby, they'll understand. They know what Caliber 321 means. And if they don't, well, then, it's a nice way to open up a conversation. So, yeah, that's why I chose it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just for the record, in case someone listening does not know what the Caliber 321 is, that's the movement that was inside the Omega Speedmaster that landed on the moon, in case someone doesn't know. But if you're listening to this, chances are I just wasted your time. How about you, Bob?
For me, my name, or my channel name, Time to Go Travel and Timepieces, is not so much a secret handshake because it's just stating the obvious for the most part. There was a bunch of channels called Just Time to Go when I first sort of came up with that idea. So I had to tack on the travel and timepieces to distinguish itself from those other channels. But yeah, just a combination of the watches and travel. So Time to Go.
Yeah, cool.
Yourself.
My name, Time to Watch. It goes back to in the infancy of the internet, back in the days when there were multiple search engines like Travelocity and Webcrawler, and Yahoo was one of the bigger ones before there was a Google. And Yahoo had a thing called Yahoo Groups, where you could start basically a forum where people would join and share pictures and talk about their hobbies and things that they like. And I wanted to start one about watches. And I wanted to come up with a name, and it just came to me, Time to Watch. I named that group that name, and then it just sort of stuck with me. I use it on the various watch forums all over the place. I use it as a handle for when I play video games on my phone. I've had that forever. It's been in my signature. It's kind of silly, but I like it, and it's stuck with me. And I think that a lot of people associate Time to Watch with me now over the last 20 years. So yeah, that's how it came about.
That's great.
So next question there, question number this one. Both of you guys have active YouTube channels, blogs, and projects. What are you guys currently working on right now?
Well, we had to talk about this not long before the show started. For me, the website is probably still my main focus. I have 4 or 5 people that are commonly working on this outside of just me. Vincent Deschamps is a great writer and photographer. He does a lot of work for us, and obviously Tyler Frederick, he from Horology Obsessed, he does a lot of work for us too. In fact, he's our marketing manager. But as I just mentioned, my wife has kind of jumped on board, and she's interested in maybe translating things so that we could offer it in more than one language. And even my daughter has kind of become our jack of all trades around the office and studio. So, it still is a pretty main focus. It has a great following, and it has a lot of monthly views, and not just of reviews, but I really like, that we're moving in the direction of articles. I love to cover events, for example. Things like, Longines at the World Cup of Ski, or maybe the launch of the Anatom at Art Basel with Rado. And as you guys know, recently, I had the chance to sit down with someone very special, and I'll introduce it now. But I had a really great opportunity yesterday to talk to Alain Zobrist, who is the director of Omega Timing for the Paris Olympic Games. And it was just such a highlight of my day, and maybe even a highlight of the year, to sit down and speak with this guy who is just so fantastic. So I'm really excited to share the majority of that interview with you guys and with our listeners later on in the show. So that's huge. At the end of August, I'll also be covering the Red Bull World Championship Series of cliff diving in Montreal. And that's going to be a lot of fun. It'll be an overnight stay there in Montreal, and a chance to do some really great outdoor photography, as well as writing the article that goes with that. And then, of course, as you mentioned earlier, Mark, we just started a YouTube channel, and it's still in its kind of nascent stages. It's roughly around 500 followers, but the last 2 videos have done incredibly well, and we're pretty hopeful for it. I've really been won over to the video side of things. It was something I was afraid to do for a long time, but yeah, I suppose that's one thing that we're going to definitely focus on moving forward.
Yeah, fantastic. Hey, not only the highlight of your day yesterday with that interview with the gentleman from Omega, but believe you me, Bob and I were probably just as excited as you were when you let us know that's to happen and when you shared the file with us so we can listen to it. I was grinning from ear to ear the entire time. So yeah, well done. And when you come to Montreal, you have to make some time for me there. There's a beer with your name on it.
That sounds like
absolutely.
an invitation.
I owe you one too.
Fantastic. I'll catch you later this summer.
And don't forget, we have that the Toronto Timepiece show coming up in September, which all three of us are attending. I don't know if we're going to try to work out a recording session or work out a get-together somehow, but it's something I would really like to get together and do.
That's going to be an incredible 2-day show. I'm really looking forward to that. And in fact, I think that we're hoping to have Jason Hutton, who is the organizer of that event, on a future episode. So we'll keep our fingers crossed for that.
Absolutely. So Bob, what about you?
So that kind of segues perfectly into some of the stuff I have coming up. Actually, on the 6th of August, I'm going to be doing a live stream with Jason Hutton, the organizer of the Toronto Timepiece show. And moving forward, I'm actually going to be featuring quite a few brands. I think probably you are too, Brent, but I'll be featuring quite a few brands that are going to be attending the show in September on the channel and on Instagram too. So that's a lot of things will be revolving around that Toronto Timepiece show and the lead up to it over the next couple of months.
Yeah, I've gotten contacted by a few of those brands as well to talk about them and possibly do a review and meet with them, trying to organize meetings. I don't know how busy it's going to be. I mean, it's the inaugural event and the tickets have all sold out. Well, not for sale, but they're all taken and accounted for. If it's anything like the wind-up shows, it could be very long lines to speak to people. Hopefully there's lulls here and there where we can actually spend time with owners and brands. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be fantastic. I can't wait.
Yeah, it's a big moment for Canadian watch enthusiasts for sure. First time ever. Yeah,
60 brands. I mean, is it 50 or 60?
I think that it's definitely over 50 at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Very good stuff. As far as what I'm working on, again, just working a lot for Warren and Wound. Despite the articles that have my name associated to them, I do a lot of stuff for the Wind Up Shop, the Roundups, the Chronicles. I also do stuff for their partnerships division. So this is busy. July was probably my biggest month. I wrote 19 pieces for that month, and I've got 2 to write today that I've got to get to at some point. Not complaining by any stretch of the imagination. It's a lot of fun. The people there are just so nice to work with and flexible, and they provide a lot of time, and we get a lot of assets to work with as far as pictures are concerned. And one of the coolest things is getting those pictures and that information before anybody else does. I knew about that Formex with Scottish Watches collaboration days ago before it was launched, and I had to write up the release for it, and it was pretty neat seeing all that stuff. I don't know if you guys had a chance to see that watch.
That's a stunner. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very cool. With the loop back. Yeah.
Exactly. It's not lumed, it's UV. So it's not always lit. It only appears if you shine the light on it. So you can see the movement perfectly clearly. It's all nice there. And the minute you shine the torch, which comes with the watch, it jumps out from the case back. Yeah. So there's the front too. So you got regular lume on the hands and on the indices. But if you shine the torch, stars pop out of the background of the aventurine dial to make it look a little more vibrant. It's just really cool. Cool. Yeah, the guys at Scottish Watches, I found that their collaborations aren't just reskins. It's not just another dial color or a case back with an engraving. They seem to put in little Easter eggs, either the Scottish flag, the saltire. I don't remember how to say it properly, but their flag or their logo or something funny, or they do a really good job at putting these collaborations together. And Formex is one of I've known Raphael for a long time. I reviewed their first relaunch watch in 2019 or 18, I think it was. And I've been, associated with them for a long time. They're a great company, great guy, great family that owns Dexel, I think it is. It's called their parent company that manufactures cases and bracelets and clasps for high-end companies. And apparently his uncle owns a dial manufacturing company in Switzerland. So it's all like inside the family. So you get great value for what they offer. So yeah, I'm very happy and been part of that launch. So that's those are their questions. We do have a listener email. I'll try to read it out loud here without stumbling too much. This comes from Kevin Parmenter. It says, "Hey guys, first off, really enjoyed the episode. Thanks, Kevin. Was interesting to hear how you started your journeys into watches. I'm fairly new into this hobby, and aside from the first watch, microbrands have always been attractive to me. As a discussion topic, I'd like to hear your thoughts on the value importance of a brand name. One thing that attracts me to microbrands is the value proposition that you find with the lack of premium attached to the brand name, especially Swiss brands. However, one watch that I'm considering has people online saying that it shouldn't cost that much due to the brand name. He's talking about the Timex Giorgio Galli S2. From the design, the parts and materials used, it seems like a good value, but due to the Timex name, consensus seems to be overpriced. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic." And then he's got a little side note. He and I were in touch on Instagram. He was considering a Tipsim 200-meter diver. I don't know if you guys know that brand. They make this really neat retro-style diver with a domed acrylic bezel, domed acrylic crystal. It's really, really neat. A really thin bracelet, very comfortable, great size, great value. So he was considering one, and being from Canada, these things don't float around here very often. And asked my advice, and he wanted to buy one, and he's very, very happy with it. So congratulations on that purchase, Kevin. And what do you guys think of that question? What do you guys think of brand name and value and the price tag associated to those names and that stuff? What do you think?
Well, I'd love to hear what you have to say about this, actually, Paul.
So for me, I don't get too tied up when it comes to brand recognition. I love and appreciate the history of brands, but I equally love the smaller brands. I like the passionate owners behind them. I cover mostly smaller brands, micro brands, independent brands on the channel, and I love the stories. I love the fact that most of them are passionate watch enthusiasts, just like us, and I find that I sometimes have more of a connection to these smaller brands than the bigger, more well-known brands.
Yeah, I think I can echo that for sure. I mean, when I started out doing watch reviews, the majority of them were for micro brands. And of course, being at a more affordable price point, they're easier to sort of pick up and have fun with. Even if maybe you down the road, you move them along and somebody else gets to enjoy them for a period of time. I would say that if you want to get the most bang for your buck, then obviously a lot of the micro brands out there are where you need to go. That being said, not all micro brands were created equal. So I suppose that, you can also maybe get stuck with something that really wasn't entirely what you expected to get. So I think my answer here is kind of complex. Does it matter? It shouldn't. But I would say that sometimes it does. I think that you can find with an established brand something a little bit more reliable. It's less a roll of the dice, which is not to say that those big brands don't make mistakes too. Obviously they do. But, Bob just talked about stories. And one of the other things that's really a draw with established brands is the provenance. It's it's the story we talked about earlier, the landing on the moon and the Omega Speedmaster, So I do believe that while it shouldn't matter in terms of the quality or your enjoyment of the watch, I also have to say that probably it does play into a lot of decisions for watch enthusiasts, including me.
Yeah, Lee, I have a take on this as well. Brand recognition, brand prestige, heritage does play a factor. And as far as value is concerned, or the price associated to brands sort of moving up market, like Timex has done with a few of their models. They recently had a GMT in the $700 range, fully titanium. And if you look at the specs on paper, that was a $1,000 watch. They were selling it for, I don't know, I think it's around $700. And people were freaking out because it was a Timex that they were trying to get that kind of money. Now, go back 20 years or maybe even a little more than that, before Grand Seiko was widely available in North America, and before Grand Seiko was, did what Toyota did with Lexus, where they branched off and made their own brand kind of thing. I had bought a Grand Seiko F Quartz a smaller model back in 2001, maybe 2002. And it was one of those, again, it said Seiko in big letters and then Grand Seiko underneath it, really small. And it was a $1,500 watch at the time, maybe $2,000 at the time. And a lot of my friends who were collectors, or people in Montreal, especially, who are not as educated in horology as we are, were saying, "You paid that much for a Seiko? I can go to the mall and get one for $200 or $400. At the time, the Orange Monster and the Black Monster were selling for less than $200 online. So people had a hard time with that. And right now, Citizen's having that issue. Citizen's starting to make watches under the brand or the model name The Citizen, which are extremely high end, very well finished titanium, super titanium watches with special paper dials and movements that are good to 5 seconds a year or better even. But they're having a hard time. I mean, people are looking at these and they're around $3,000-$4,000, and they're asking themselves, why should I spend that much on a Citizen? So it's a tough road, right? Oris is doing the same thing right now. They're trying to get up market, right? They came up with their Caliber 400 movements. Those watches are significantly more expensive than the ones that have the SW movements, the Sellita movements, and they're having a hard time selling those ones. Maybe not in Europe, maybe not in a place like New York City, or maybe in Toronto, where there's more of a watch community or watch aficionados who appreciate a better movement. But here in Montreal, or probably in smaller cities, looking at the Oris for $2,000 and then there's an Oris for $4,000, and they're nearly identical. That $4,000 Oris is not going to sell. And for that matter, they've also increased their prices for their Sellita movement watches too. There used to be quite again, affordability is relative. They were a good value proposition, and now they're starting to get a little expensive. When you compare to a Monta or compared to Okanaska or some of those other brands, the smaller independent brands that are putting out these incredibly high quality, high value watches. And you compare apples with apples, it starts getting, Formex. We spoke about Formex before. That watch that they're selling with the Scottish Watches collaboration, it's selling for $19.90 US, taxes and duties and all that stuff included, shipped from Switzerland. And that movement is a top grade chronometer, SW200, fully decorated, blue screws, the whole 9 yards. And then you get an Oris at probably $500 to $1,000 more expensive than that in Canada. And that has a dropped in SW200 with a red painted rotor. That's basically the finishing you're getting. And if you're lucky, you'll get, plus minus 8 seconds a day or 10. So that's all relative. Now, just a small little story regarding, brand recognition and value and how you feel about it. There was a time once when microbrands were first starting on the internet, and I had gotten a watch from a company called Pantor. Strange looking watch, big giant honking diver with a sort of beads of rice bracelet. And I was pretty happy with it. I was going to review it. I really liked it. I had it on my wrist. And then I was driving to work one day and we were stuck in traffic. And there was a dude in an SUV next to me, and he had his arm out the window and had a big, Breitling Seawolf. And I was looking at that and I'm looking at my watch and like, that's really cool. That's a Breitling. And I kind of felt weird about the Pantor that no one ever knows made in China, that, so there is something to that, right? Where you don't want to say that you're a snob, or you don't want to say that you've got some kind of prejudice, watch brands and so forth. But in the end, like you said, there's stories and heritage, and there's feelings associated with those brands, right? Well, when I was a kid, I was 22, I think, when GoldenEye was in the movie theaters, and I saw Pierce Brosnan wearing that Omega Seamaster. Boy, did I want that watch. Holy cow, did I want that watch. I bought magazines, I bought books, and, I eventually did get one, and it took a number of years, but I eventually did get one. Now, here's a question for you, one last question. When we're talking about these independent brands and all these micro brands, there's a conversation we had on the Warner One Slack community about the brands and the owners. What happens if one of these owners eventually passes away or leaves the company, or for whatever reason, decides no longer to be making watches? Now, there's a lot of brands that I've heard that used to make watches that are no longer around now. How comfortable would you be if let's say you had an Okanaska and you loved your watch, and then Chase, I think is his name, leaves the company, or decides to get out of watches and the company folds? How do you feel about that brand then?
Well, I'm not sure that if I went in for a micro brand, that I would be buying it with an eye towards what it would be worth in the future, or whether the brand would still be producing them. Most of these micro brands are still using, off-the-shelf movements, ETA-based, Sellita-based, etc. So, they're easily serviceable by anyone and anywhere in the world. And if I liked the watch, that's why I would have bought it. It would not have been because of the longevity that I was, predicting for that particular brand. So I don't think I'd have any issue with that. But just as a further answer to the first part of that question, there are a lot of brands that begin their lives as micro brands, but we have now seen, because it's been 20 or 30 years down the road, that some of them have actually developed into significant companies and very reputable watchmakers. I think here, for example, of Christopher Ward is the first one that comes off the top of my head. But
I was going to blurt that out.
But if Mike France left the company, it would still be a company at this point. I think. For example, Braemont would be the same thing. These
Braemont is a can of worms there.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into that today. But that these will exist beyond the current CEO or the founder.
Yeah, well, Christopher Ward, it wasn't he the person behind the name? Wasn't he part of the company at the beginning and is no longer part of that company?
I don't know the details, but I do know that there was a person by the name of Christopher Ward that was one of the founders, and I'm not sure the story as to where he went or why he went, but there was definitely a fellow named Christopher Ward there in the early days.
There you go.
Okay.
What about you, Bob?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same with Roby. I'm not too worried about longevity when it comes to like needing service down the road, or like I cover a lot of brands that are brand spanking new first releases. A lot of times it's prototypes. Some of them don't get past that stage. I've done a few videos where that's it. They just didn't get beyond there, either if they maybe are trying to do a crowdfunding campaign that's unsuccessful, Kickstarter, that sort of thing. So some of them don't make it even to the starting line almost. But for me, I actually have a watchmaker, luckily, about a 2-minute drive from my house, and I've had watches that were under warranty, and I'll just have him deal with it, like, instead of going through the hassle of shipping it to the States or to wherever. Because most of them are like the NH movements or Solitas or Miota movements.
Yeah,
but. Yeah, it's not a huge concern for me, to be honest.
Yeah, you know what? After watching enough wristwatch revival videos, I'm pretty confident that we can find people to fix Meta and Solita movements and even some of the other ones. I mean, I had a I had a Findyson dive watch recently which had a Damasco movement inside, and it was a movement that was based on their architecture, using components that are compatible with an ETA 2824. So any watchmaker that needed to service it could service it with those parts, which is brilliant, honestly. And it was a full balance bridge design, so it was more robust. It had retweaked the way the winding system was done, so it's a little more efficient. Very smart and very, very well. And apparently it fits directly into a replacement for an ETA 2824. Like, it fits right into the same spot, the same size and dimensions. Very smartly done. Yeah. As far as getting watches repaired, I had a Seamaster Professional chronograph long ago, a white one, that needed servicing. It was way off, and the date was changing at like 4:00 or something weird. And at the time, the official service center, there was one in Montreal. It was a gentleman. He unfortunately passed away now. And he'd let me stand over his shoulder and watch him putz around with the watch, which is really cool. It was really nice. It's too bad that guy's not there anymore.
Well,
so that's all the questions I have.
Yeah, those are both great questions. And thanks particularly to Kevin, who is our very first listener question. Fantastic.
Yeah, we should send him a TGN hat. Oh, wait a minute. We don't have those. Maybe someday.
Well, perhaps it's time now for me to introduce the latter half of our show today, which, as I mentioned earlier, is that fantastic interview with a really wonderful guy, Alain Zobrist, who is the director of Omega Timing for the Paris Olympic Games. So without further ado, here we go. Okay, perfect. I mean, I won't waste a lot of your time because I know you're very busy, but ask, what are you wearing on your wrist today?
Master Chronoscope Paris 2024 edition.
Absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Thank you for that. This year is the 31st Olympics for Omega. How many have you been a part of?
9, I think.
9 Olympics. That's fantastic. Before your role with Swiss Timing, you were head of global sports marketing. Did you ever dream that you would actually be here on the world stage in what is probably the most important sporting event on the planet?
No. I never had any plans or any dreams in that direction. It just, I don't know. It just happened, I guess. I don't know. I never had any plans whatsoever. I always wanted to learn and to have fun, I think, which I think is very important for everyone who finds a passion in his job. So no, I didn't have any plan at all, and I not any dreams of being here in Paris, sitting, talking to you, although it's very, very kind.
That's wonderful. Now, you do both the, you do a lot of sporting events, but you do both the winter and the summer games. Is there a difference in your approach to either one?
The mission is the same. So we want to make sure that we can provide all athletes participating with their results as soon as they finish their competition. So the mission is exactly the same. Now they're obviously different. Different sports require different type of equipment, different environments. It's cold in winter, hot in summer. So we got to make sure we tailor, and we consider all those differences. So they're very different. Very different. Hard to compare, but with the same values.
Okay, fantastic. Now, when Omega began with the Los Angeles Olympics in 1932, I think there were maybe 30 chronographs that were on hand. How large is your team now, and how many events are they going to cover in Paris?
So we are 550 timekeepers, deploying 350 tons of equipment, 200 kilometers of cables. We can't do the work alone, so we're working with about 900 volunteers across all different sports. There are 329 events, 32 different sports, if I'm not mistaken. So it's like having 32 world championships happening at the same time in 2 weeks.
Absolutely.
So it's a big endeavor. But yeah, that's the size of the team. They're split in the different venues. Every sport has its specific set of equipment with its specialized team to operate that equipment. So they report then centrally. We have a team in Tahiti for surfing. We have a team in Marseille for sailing competitions. We've got football in 7 different cities around France, and then obviously the big part of the team in Paris, providing our services in all the venues, in all the sports around the city.
So how does homologation for all of these events occur? Is it just one governing body, the Olympics, or does each sport have its own?
Yes, each sport has its own. So every single international federation for every single sport is in charge to homologate the technologies, the equipment that is deployed in their various sports. So all of our equipments are all homologated by the respective international federations.
Incredible. That must be a nightmare for administration. So the Olympics is essentially a 19-day event, but I can't imagine that your team is only available 19 days. So how long in advance do you begin planning for an Olympics, and how long in advance do you have to be on the ground?
3 years before. So we have a little team that is present, working closely with the organizing committee, with the local authorities to prepare for the big arrival. And the big event. So they're involved in venue construction, for example, making sure that we have the needed spaces to operate, cable pathways, or storage areas, whatever it may be. We are then the year before the opening ceremony, there are always test events where every sport runs international or any kind of competition actually. In the respective venues to test all kinds of things. And obviously we're also testing our deployment there. And then we come in about 10 days prior to opening ceremony with our 550 timekeepers, 250 tons of equipment. We fill everything out, test in order to be ready a couple days before opening ceremony, just to give us a little bit of a buffer in case of need. And then we'll run the events, pack and leave, go to the next event. So, it's a big logistical endeavor. We're having, I think, 35 different hotels around Paris. We manage our own transportation of our staff. Everyone is hungry and thirsty all the time, so not all the time. We have to cater for that as well. So, and laundry. Cannot forget laundry. So, all of that needs to be properly organized. And when we have a delegation of timekeepers that is bigger than many national Olympic committees sending with athletes, there's a lot of things that has to be prepared.
So with Paris in particular, were there any new challenges, for example, with some of the new sports being introduced?
No, not necessarily. We have solutions for about 100 different sports. So we do for these new sports is we take what we have and we make it Olympic ready. So there are a couple of specifications that need to happen, special data feeds, we need hot backups. And there's one sport that is actually super fascinating for us here, the speed climbing, because it's the second sport where athletes would stop their times themselves after swimming.
Okay.
Swimming and speed climbing, two only sports where athletes stop their time. So it's not a big challenge. It's just part of our everyday job to provide these services in each sports, and it's not new in the Olympics. Some of them, actually all of them, were tests, or how they call this. They were in the Olympic program in Tokyo already. Demonstration sports, I think that's what it was. They were also in the Youth Olympics. Breaking was for the first time at the Youth Olympics in Buenos Aires. So there is a lead up to the Olympics for all these sports that we carry them through these phases.
So what has changed since Tokyo? What new innovations or technology are being implemented that we didn't see then?
We have a new photo finish camera, 4 times more pictures per second than the previous one, 40,000 versus 10,000. We have an improved lens that allows us to have a very good quality of the photo finish pictures, which is the only way how judges would judge the times of the athletes crossing the line in all sports where they cross the finish line. So it's a very important and central piece of our deployment. We have new motion sensors and positioning systems where we deploy also computer vision and artificial intelligence. So we made a big step forward there compared to Tokyo, where we can really now have a much better, clear understanding of the athletes' performances between start and finish, tell the story of the race, and understand where they gained or lost time, and eventually where they won a medal and where they lost it. And another thing that we've introduced now in Paris is new technologies for broadcast. Omega has been a pioneer there as well, with the device called Omega Scope that revolutionized broadcast in 1962. It was the first time that, thanks to this device, we could show a running time on TV. Mm-hmm. And these devices were then widely used in 1964, which are the first Olympics that were broadcasted worldwide, and with the elements of time appearing on screen for the first time. So so that's in a nutshell the biggest innovations in Paris.
Who do you consider to be the biggest stakeholders in Olympic timing?
Athletes. Everything we do is for the athletes. They train their entire life for this particular moment. So the only thing they deserve is having a trustworthy partner, which they have with Omega for almost 100 years, that is providing them with their results as soon as they cross their finish line or finish their competition. So all the innovations that we do, all the services that we provide, is primarily for the athletes, without a doubt.
So, with that in mind, you must have a lot of fail-safes in place. How do you plan for failure?
We've got backups, up to 4 of them, depending on the sports. minimum of 2 backups though. So those are considered to be hot backups. So we can switch from the main system to the backup system at any point in time during competition without losing any data. We run on independent power source, and in case that fails, we can run on batteries. We have double teams in place depending on the sports. Also, where we can shift from one team to another in case of need.
Mhm.
So yeah, everything. We try to plan in a way that we're prepared for any kind of eventualities during competition.
I think most people have a rudimentary understanding of what timing is. They know when a gun goes off, somebody begins running, and when they cross the finish line, then the time is over. But there's a whole lot more that goes into it than that. Could you give us just an example? For example, the 100-meter dash. What goes into timing and watching that race?
So there's equipment at the start, starting gun that triggers the clock, right, to start the race, and then there starting blocks that are absolutely key to the deployment in athletics, because in case of false starts, athletes would be immediately disqualified. So you gotta have accurate, precise, and highly functional devices to measure these reaction times. Then throughout the race, we measure wind. Wind is a very important element in track and field. In case there is too much wind from the back, the records may not be homologated, right? If there's too much headwind, it's okay, but back, not good. It's 2 meters per second that is allowed. Everything that is above records would not be homologated. Then we're tracking the entire performance of the athletes. They have a little sensor in athletics in their bib number, where we measure the biomechanical movements of the athletes, so we can count steps. We have their instant speeds, which means that we could have their acceleration, deceleration. We have position. Basically, we can really analyze the full race and explain the result that is then captured through photo finish cameras. That's the official time. Now we have photo cells also installed on the finish line that stop the running time on TV. So you have an unofficial time and an official time in athletics, and that's the reason why. So photo cells unofficial time to stop the running time, and then photo finish images to judge the official results. And all that data is then sent centrally in a dedicated sports-specific software, where all the data is formatted, treated, and sent out worldwide. And it's feeding a whole lot of clients, obviously broadcasters in the first place. So all the graphics that you would see in any kind of competition are generated through our systems. All the information, so that obviously caters for the fans watching athletes perform on TV. The information is also provided to scoreboards in the stadium to cater for fans watching the athletes perform in the stadiums. And then it's also distributed to websites, mobile apps. I mean, you name it. It just goes out globally everywhere.
And that's just one race.
That's just one race.
So do you have a favorite moment from all your time in sports time?
So many. I think one of the races that I remember is 2008 Phelps-Cavich. That was a that was a legendary one, and that showed how important it is to have functioning and accurate technology in place. Because what our technology does in general is to measure differences between athletes' performances that you could not see with your naked eye.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just one of the examples that comes to mind, where, not only was historic with 8 goals, but the element of somehow being part of it in a passive way,
mm-hmm.
Although very active, where we could really, it was the proof that, the equipment was needed and working obviously also perfectly fine. I think that's one of the moments that come to mind now.
Yeah, that's a fantastic moment in sport, and also one of those sports where they have to stop their time on their own. So very important. So listen, I can see that there's movement in the background there, and I can see also by the clock that we've just passed our time limit. So I will say thank you so much for your time this morning. A wonderful set of responses.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
All right. How good was that? Great job on the interview, Roby. That was really impressive. Very cool to hear the numbers that he was throwing out, the number of people, the amount of equipment involved to get it to all work over there. And really thankful that he gave us some time, especially during the Olympics. He must be, I'm sure, a very busy man right now.
Very busy or very scared that something's going to go bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was really cool. It's one thing watching Olympics and seeing the little numbers floating around on the screen, and it's a whole other thing considering, the blocks for the feed for the runners, the gun starting the clock, and then, the swimming where the athletes actually stop the time. There's a lot more to it. And the amount of people, like, who would have thought there's 500 people and 900 volunteers putting all that together? It's really, really impressive, and makes you wonder if somebody else wanted to jump in and take Omega's place, could they? Right? Omega's got so much invested in this, and they've been doing it for, like you said, almost 100 years.
Absolutely. I was thinking the same thing when he was actually answering these questions, and I was looking at him and how calm he was. And as you both said, like, we're in the throes of the Olympics as we speak right now. And here's a guy taking, 15, 20 minutes out of his day to speak to me calmly, quietly, unassumingly, very modest and humble individual. And yet he is in charge of one of the most important events unrolling at that very moment. It was fantastic.
I'm thoroughly impressed, and I'm so happy that you were able to get this together. And like I said earlier, Bob and I were flabbergasted when you told us you had this interview in the can. It was perfect for a second episode. And everybody, that's our show. Thank you very much for listening. Please like and subscribe and review if possible on iTunes, and put the stars and the things and click on the things and the things. That'd be great to help us out. So we look forward to doing another episode soon. I will likely be off on the next episode because I'm going on vacation. But we may have a special guest. Who knows? We'll see. So thank you guys, everybody, and have a nice couple of weeks.
Thanks for listening.
See you, Mark.